Ohio. A Coruna, the large city in the northwest of Spain, the resort and the port. The administrative center of the province of the same name is a part of autonomous community Galicia. The important historical port located on the northwest coast of the Iberian Peninsula. The downtown is on the peninsula connected with the continent a narrow isthmus. In the mouth of the river a Coruna the port, further, city beaches Riza and Orson is located. The population minus 243,870 people. 2015. Is the second most populated municipality of Galicia after Vigo. This city is the center of the agglomeration of the same name uniting inhabitants, more than a half of total number of the population of the province. Population density of the city record for Galicia and all Spain. 6471. 32 inhabitants on km. As the municipality has the area only 37.83 km. The most part of industrial facilities is in the boundary city of Artico, one of the most industrially developed centers of Galicia. Thus, a Coruna is focused generally on the service sector. The secondary sector of economy is presented by the port of A Coruna and Repsol oil refinery. Climate of the city southern oceanic, with moderate temperatures all the year round. In the city the Supreme Court of Galicia, administration of the governor of the province and headquarters of Royal Academy of Galicia are located. The municipality is limited in the north to the Atlantic Ocean, in the east, the mouth of the river A Coruna and municipality of Oleiros, in the south, Culleredo's municipality, in the west Artico. There is a set of theories of origin of the name of the city, including Indo-European, Celtic or Latin. Theory of the Roman origin. The name of the city could come from Latin Acrunia, the peninsula. At the time of Ferdinand Tulensky, the 12th century, the toponym of Crunia was for the first time mentioned in chronicles. Throughout a century he was also mentioned in the A Crunia and Da Crunia. 1257. Forms in the letter of 1262 the city appears as La Crunia. The D Middle Ages often met the names Crunia and Crana. The second option of Latin origin. From Corona, the high place, with numerous options of Galician, Curuto, Curota, Corot, Coroa. There are European toponymic compliances in English, Swedish, Czech, etc. Greeks used the word chronos for the description of the highest heavenly divinity. The term Acropolis from here, the city at top. Theory of the Celtic origin. From Cruin, the supreme deity equivalent to the Roman Saturn. The second option of the Celtic origin. From the Celtic root Clunia evolving in Crunia, Cruna, Coruna and Coruna. The city with the similar name, La Corunidalconda. Where goes. In the ancient time was called Clunia Sulpicia. In Portugal there is a city under Quinta de Coruna name whose name happens as it is considered, from the Galician A Coruna. From Cornea. Horn. By the principle of origin of the name of the British peninsula Cornwall which, in turn, comes from the term Kern very similar addressed to god Kernan. Indo-European theory. From the Dorimsky root Kor. Akar. with Valle de Rock, a stone on the seashore. Coincidence of place names serves as the proof of this version in area. Carcubian, stern, Coruna, Carnet. The traditional name in Spanish is La Coruna, and in Galician, a Coruna. One more, less used in Galician name is Coruna. A Crunha. Symbolics of the city. Coat of arms. It is widely presented in public places, on lampposts, ballot boxes and even on city asphalt. The coat of arms represents a board of azure color with the Tower of Hercules surrounded with 7 sinks of scallops. Perhaps the brightest element of the coat of arms is the skull with the crossed bones symbolizing the remains of Gerion's giant killed by Heracles, which are allegedly buried in the base of a tower. According to a legend, Hercules pursued Gerion from Cadiz and engaged with him on the peninsula on which nowadays there is a Coruna. But flakes, having beheaded Gerion on the seashore, are built in honor of the prostrate enemy, the beacon, a tower which is represented on a municipal coat of arms. A Coruna has a peculiar relief. The center is located on the T-shaped peninsula connected by an isthmus to the plain and steep hills from the west and east. Now some of them already are within the city after his expansion after 1940, and others were turned into green zones. The hill bends in Mount San Pedro. The municipality also includes higher places, such as Mount San Pedro, and also some islands, such as Archipelago of San Pedro. A Coruna is almost completely washed by waters of the Atlantic Ocean. From the east from the Orson Beach, to the west to the mouth of the Coruna River. Through municipality, the river Monelos concluded in the underground pipeline and formed by merge of the Masuro River. 2 other small channels passing through vicinities Cutro Caminos also flows. Near the Palace of the Opera and the Park Santa Margarita, is in the downtown falls of artificial origin. Climate of the city oceanic, according to classification of climate of Köppen, with some influence of the Mediterranean climate. The minimum quantity of rainfall drops out in summertime, though they also are insufficiently expressed. Temperature remains soft during the whole year. Being a coastal city, he has sea climate that causes a small difference of temperatures between seasons. The winter is soft, summer moderate, rainfall is combined with solar seasons. Average annual humidity of air about 70%. In the last decades the city is one of the hottest in Galicia. The most high temperature was recorded on August 28, 1961, 39.6 C, the lowest on January 7, 1985. 4.8 C. For the last decades in the region there were atypical weather conditions, such as cyclone Claus in January 2009 to wind gusts in 200 km/h, and the Hurricane Hortensia in October 1984, and also a strong heat in Europe in 2003. In 1987, an abnormally cold winter in the city, even snow dropped out. In gardens in the downtown, such as Los Jardines de Mendocines, San Carlos and Santa Margarita, is a lot of birds, such as big titmouse, pigeon, forest pigeon and thrush. In suburbs buzzards, Perpelliotnik and the kestrel meet. On the coast the tea is a lot of. Goldfinches live in San Pedro and Ben's Cortagiras parks, and turtle doves nest in Janista thickets in the summer. Lizards, rabbits and even foxes meet. The breakwater opposite to the Loch San Anton is a shelter during inflow for impressive quantity of water birds, including sandspurs, varotenic and cormorants. On beaches and rocks on the coast, seaweed, red and limy grow, and crabs, starfishes and mussels live in cracks of stones and on a strip of inflow. At the coast it is possible to see dolphins and even whales who sometimes approach beaches. In 1976 there was a first of sea accidents which influenced ecology of the coast of the city. On May 12 the same year the Aquila tanker which lit up when tried to approach the port of Coruna ran aground. The authorities tried to drag the tanker in the sea, but tanks of the ship blew up. Oil spill which lit up subsequently began. As a result of this incident of the coast of the city within many weeks were polluted by oil products. In the morning on December 3, 1992 the Mar Egeo tanker Aegean Sea entered the port of Coruna at adverse weather conditions, at wind gusts in more than 100 km/h and visibilities less than 100 m. Because of a storm the tanker made wrong maneuver and ascents, in several hundred meters from the coast at an entrance to port ran aground on stony shallows. According to the captain it occurred at 4:50. At 8:00 the vessel ran aground at Tower of Hercules, near an entrance to the harbour. At 9:45 the vessel broke up into two parts and soon lit up. The captain authorized evacuation of 28 crew members who were brought to the coast by emergency helicopters. The victims managed to be avoided, however it was necessary to evacuate about 300 families from coastal houses. A smoke cloud within several hours closed the sky over the city, while in the second half of day wind drove them towards Ferrol from the vessel. The lack of barriers to oil slicks and destruction of some of them didn't allow to stop spread of an oil slick which reached mouths of the rivers Coruna, Ars, Betanzos and Ferrol. In total about 300 km of the coastline suffered, having deprived also of work of more than 400 fishermen and having destroyed a coastal aquaculture. Damages from accident were assessed at €300 million. Washed astern of Mar Egeo ashore at Tower of Hercules, and it for many years was one of sights. Eventually, it was sold at an auction as scrap metal of one Asturian company, and the anchor from the tanker is stored in a city aquarium. Compensations to the persons affected by accident began to be paid in 2002 after long judicial proceedings in the Supreme Court of Galicia. On September 10, 1996 the mountain of garbage on a city dump around Benz collapsed, having covered with itself a dam and several buildings. Cubic meters of the earth and garbage buried under themselves several cars and tens of boats. An incident caused civil disorders as for several days covered the city with a wave of an intolerable stench. In November 2002 at coast of the city the Prestige tanker crashed, and the oil slick reached the coast, though the damage of ecology was this time not so serious, as in the previous cases. The Benz Beach is an object of fears from ecologists today. Near the oil refinery, the center of sewage treatment and pumps for sewage of the city of Artico are located already mentioned clearing, and also in 2005 on the beach more than 1,000 liters of diesel fuel from oil refinery were thrown up. Fuel was merged at first to the river I attacked, and then it accumulated on the beach. Greenpeace filed a lawsuit against the owner of oil refinery, the Repsol company. There are certificates of Dorimski settlements in the territory occupied by the city today. Castro di Alvigna and Alto di Santa Margherita. The Celtic tribe of Artaber was indigenous people of area, according to Strabo. The Gulf of Coruna is mentioned in works of classical geographers under the name of Portus Magnus Artebrorum and was one of key points in a tradeway along coast of Europe. Brigantian toponym mentioned in works of historians probably corresponds to the present suburb of Coruna of Betancosu. Dion Cassi writes about Caesar's arrival to Brigantia's coast. In the 2nd century on the Cape of Coruna, Romans built the beacon, present Tower of Hercules. Recently the remains of a necropolis and other Roman buildings in the areas of Pescaderia and Monte Alto were found. After fall of the Roman Empire, the region was populated with Suevi and Visigoths. The Arab invasion to the Iberian Peninsula in 711 almost didn't affect this area, which less than in 100 years became a part of the Christian kingdom of Asturias. Bermuda too established the control over the coast and island of Faro. Actually it is the peninsula on which there is Tower of Hercules. But between the 9th and 10th centuries the region experienced periodic attacks of flotillas of Vikings that caused outflow of the population in Betanzos, under protection of a landscape. In 991 there was a port where there arrived pilgrims going in Santiago de Compostela. In 1208 the city was conquered by the King of Leon Alfonso IX, who moved residents of the neighboring city of Alberga on the location of the present Old City, reconstructed the city, having named him Crunia, and provided him trade privileges. Thus, Coruna became the enclave submitting directly to the king, free from the vassalated in relation to clergy or feudal lords of Galicia. Several decades later Alfonso X granted to the city land rights and the right of sale of salt without payment of taxes that led to his economic prosperity. During Enrique III's government at the end of the 14th century, walls which protected the city in the next centuries were put up. A part of their remains remained, as well as 3 gates which conducted from the city to Perot embankment. So the bastion known as the Old Fortress, Fortaleza Vieja, remained. In the 15th century I granted to Coruna the status of the city. 1446. Charles I was present at local courteses meeting and opened the House of Trade in Spices in the city. In the 17th-18th centuries, continuous wars of the Spanish monarchy led to increase in taxes and increase in load of the population. The city fell into decline. In 1588 the port of Coruna left Invincible Armada, and after her defeat the city was attacked by Francis Drake's pirates. After burning of monasteries San Domingo, San Thomas and Pescaderia on May 19, British send away. In the 16th, 17th centuries Coruna turned into the most important center of the Spanish trade with the New World. In 1620 Philip III creates Navigatsky School for boys, and in 1682 in Tower of Hercules restoration works were carried out. In war for the Spanish inheritance the city suffered from increase in taxes and an appeal of the population and army again. War ended in 1716, and the city began to be restored thanks to production and export activity of the Catalan businessmen who located in the city. During Charles III's government the monopoly of Cadiz for trade with colonies in America was liquidated. 13 ports, including a Coruna, benefited from cancellation of this monopoly. From this point the city began to develop economically actively, and the king constructed a wall along borders of the region of Pescaderia. Her remains divide beaches Riza and Orson now. In this century in the city the first manufactory opened. The tobacco factory was open. I worked till 1898 years. In the first half of the 19th century the city endured significant increase in population from, in the first years up to about 20000 in 1850.
On November 30, 1803 the expedition led by Francisco Javier Balmas went to America to spread the vaccine against smallpox created a few years ago on the continent.
During Napoleonic invasion in May 1808 the city showed resistance to the French occupation.
The patriotic revolt began on May 30 when the crowd, which is made horny by appeals to indignation, lifted the Spanish flags in honor of a name day of the King Ferdinand VII.
The Captain General Don Antonio Filonieri tried to agree with patriots, but those entered his palace. Filonieri conceded them to pressure and finally left the palace through a side door to take refuge in San Domingo's monastery. In the City Council of Defense, as well as in other large cities of Spain, was formed.
In 1809 the city was occupied by the French army of Napoleon and freed by the English army of the General John Moore. On August 19, 1815 Juan Díaz Porlier, known as Marquesito, delivered a speech with the requirement to restore the Spanish Constitution of 1812 with assistance of the bourgeoisie and the intellectuals.
However, on August 22 the liberal military betrayed him, arrested and delivered in the Loc San Anton, where he was sentenced to death and is executed through hanging on the former area of Spain on October 3, 1815.
During the First Carlist War a Coruna remained as faithful to the Queen Isabella II.
The city was besieged several times by expeditions of Carlists.
After the end of the conflict, Queen Elizabeth II awarded the city with the status of the capital of the province in 1849.
At the end of the 19th century, development of new industries and banks created a basis of modern look of the city. At the time such figures as Emilio Pardo Bazan or Aureliano Linares Rabas, the deputy head of the Liberal Party,
increased prestige of the city and brought significant financial donations in hard times for the population of A Coruna.
After loss of the last Spanish colonies in 1898, many Galicians who located in the Caribbean region before so-called Indians, returned with the money to the city, wishing to recreate city luxury which they knew in the cities, such as Havana or Santiago de Cuba.
In the 20th century, demographic and economic recovery of the city was emphasized with the annexation of municipality the WASP, which happened on January 28, 1912.
The attached territories made more than 70% of the present territory of municipality. On new lands, industrial facilities, port, business network and city services actively opened.
A Coruna became the capital of architectural vanguard of Galicia at the turn of the century. After in the city, buildings with facades gained distribution in style of an Art Nouveau.
In 1930 the Telefonica company opened the central San Andres street designed by the architect José María de la Vega Sampere. Municipal elections brought on April 12, 1931 a victory to Republicans. The Republican Federation of Galicia, founded by the lawyer and politician Santiago Casares Quiroga, received 31 places in Cortes. 2 more places were received by independent Republican deputies. Socialists got 1 place and only 6 to monarchists. In the 1930th years, the city was captured by a wave of anti-religious performances. On July 2, 1931, in the second half of day, the crowd burned Church of Capuchins. Intervention of Home Guards prevented similar in the Dominican monastery. On September 12, 1933, a bomb was detonated at a back door of Church San Andres, but explosion didn't cause serious damages. San Vicente's arrival, Alvinia, was the same year burned. In 1936 civil war, and army commanders who supported a military coup took the city under control.
The military governor and the general captain were transferred to Ferrol, where they will be executed under sentence of military court for refusal to join a revolt.
During Francisco Franco's dictatorship, one of the main access roads to the downtown, which received a name of the mayor Alfonso Molina of the time, was built. Construction was financed by Pedro de Berry Lamas's businessman, the supporter of the mode, and the large companies such as Union Fenosa.
Within the 1960th years, the population of the city became active to increase. In only 10 years it grew by 6,000 people in connection with an immigration wave from rural areas and expansion of the city on the west and by the south with construction of new areas.
In 1975, construction of a Tower of Hurricane, also known as a Tower Costa Rica, marked a trend of construction of high-rise buildings, new to the Spanish cities. The Tower of Hurricane was the highest building in Galicia for more than 35 years.
In 1981 the city lost the status the capital of Galicia, which he had since 1563, and conceded him to the city of Santiago de Compostela, that caused a protest action of inhabitants of Coruna.
During tenure of the mayor, the socialist Francisco Vázquez 1983-2006. Elected by the mayor 6 time in Ero, began implementation of large-scale projects of improvement of the city, having paid the greatest attention to the big 12-kilometer embankment, to the longest in Europe, 2 and 3 science museums, to the House of Sciences, together with planetarium, to the House of the Person or Domus and the Aquarium. At this time in the city, new infrastructure was equipped. The Palace of the Opera, the Colosseum, the multipurpose building for all types of actions, including bullfights, the sculpture park near Tower of Hercules, a Tower of Sea Command, entertainment center in port, which includes the new conference center,
extensive coastal parks, an obelisk, the Millennium, or the reconstructed market squares of Lugo and Rezer Stadium.
The last years of the mandate of Vázquez were celebrated by several controversial decisions, including confrontation with the regional government concerning the name of the city. Vázquez defended the Castilian A Coruna form. In 2006, Vázquez was appointed the Prime Minister of Spain. José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero the ambassador at the Holy See, and the place of the mayor was taken by Javier Lozada.
In 2008 the city celebrated the 800th anniversary of restoration of A Coruna by the King Alfonso IX and the 200th anniversary of fight at Albany.
On June 29, 2009, Tower of Hercules, an ancient symbol of the city, was entered in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. In the last decade the city extends, first of all due to immigration in the city. 766 foreigners, most of them from Latin America, China, North Africa and Africa to the south from the Sahara live in the city. Economy. Coruna, now the richest area of Galicia. Port. Oil processing, aluminum, shipbuilding, food, textile industry. Production of weapon. Fishery. Sites. Beacon Tower of Hercules. Symbol of Coruna is Tower of Hercules, the oldest working beacon in the world. The origin of a tower is unknown, though it was reconstructed by Romans in the 2nd century AD. The name of Sevilla Lupilla, the architect of the Lusitania area of the Roman province Spain, is mentioned in an inscription on a stone. The present facade in neoclassical style represents result of the replanning which is carried out in the 18th century.
The military engineer Eustachio Giannini repaired the beacon and carried out finishing works in 1791.
Now the tower has square shape, unlike last year's when it was circular. In height reaches 58 meters. In 1991 near a tower de la Torres Park was broken. In 2007 candidacy of Tower of Hercules were proposed by UNESCO. On September 9, 2008 it became the sworn brother of the Statue of Liberty in New York, and on September 25 the sworn brother of the Beacon of Ferro del Moro in Havana, the oldest in America and one of symbols of Cuba. On June 27, 2009 UNESCO included, at last, Tower of Hercules in the World Heritage List. The Loch San Anton is located near the port. It was constructed on the small island in the center of the Gulf where there was a small chapel in honor of Saint Anthony. The purpose of construction of the loch consisted in protecting the city from attack from the sea. His construction began 1587, according to an inscription on a fortress facade. During the attack of the British fleet in 1589 the loch coped with the task in spite of the fact that it was still unfinished. After attack his construction continued before completion of works in 1590. Since the 18th century fortress became prison, while in 1960 in the city the prison wasn't constructed. Nowadays in the loch the archaeological and historical museums are located. In the old city the antiquity and beauty allocates the monastic Santa Maria del Campo Church, the late Romans church, the 12th-13th century, is qualified as cathedral church since 1441. It was graduated in 1302 and consists of 3 naves and 1 semicircular apse. Santiago Church, the 12th-13th century. Romance tradition, has the big covered wooden nave and 3 apses modified in the 15th-16th centuries. It was constructed on ruins of the monastery of San Francisco, debased about 1214, and partially destroyed in the middle of the 16th century. In 1651 it was reconstructed, but soon again destroyed by explosion of a powder keg. St. George's Church is constructed in Baroque style, consists of 3 naves and has a magnificent internal decor. The facade has columns that connect with heritage of the architect of Baroque Fernando de Casasnovoa. In this church, the first attempt of the conclusion of homosexual marriage in Spain, 1901, was made. The medieval temple was damaged in the middle of the 18th century and was completely reconstructed. The most noticeable element of its architecture is internal finishing.
From old city strengthenings, the remains of the walls and free gate leading to the sea along Perot embankment, and also the bastion known as Old Fortress, being under the state protection, remain today.
The resort area Rias Altas. The Atlantic coast of Galicia with a large number of hotels and sandy beaches. Monasteries Santa Barbara and Santo Domingo. The Garden San Carlos, in which Senta, the liberator of a Coruna from the French-English general John Moore, is buried.
In Coruna, the Galician poet who died in Havana and the outstanding representative of the Galician revival of the second half of the 19th century, Manuel Carlos Enriquez, is buried.
1851–1908. In 1934, in the city, to him the monument was erected. In the city, the soccer team, Deportivo de La Coruna, the champion of Spain 1999/2000, is based. Famous natives and inhabitants. Shown Manuel Pintos, 1811–1876. Is the Galician poet, the forerunner of revival of Galician and literature of the second half of the 19th century.
Manuel Mirjaya,
1833–1923. The active figure. Revival of Galician and the Galician literature. Is buried in Coruna. Manuel Rivas, 1957. Spanish prose writer, poet and journalist. Monsantiso. Spanish and Galician journalist, TV host and actor. Mario Casas. I was born on June 12, 1986. The Spanish actor of cinema and television. The greatest fame was gained thanks to roles in movies Summer Rain, 3 Meters Over Sky Level, and series Paco's People by Ship. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.